Hi, and welcome to Stale Popcorn, the movie podcast that sticks between your teeth. I'm Bruce Ingram, and with me is Jennifer Thomas, features managing editor of Sun-Times Media Local. And with us today is a very special guest in honor of the new season of The Walking Dead, Jay Bonansinga. Jay is a screenwriter, filmmaker, and co-author of the New York Times bestselling Walking Dead series, as well as many other novels, including my personal favorite supernatural thriller, The Black Mariah.
Wow, really? That's your personal favorite?
Yes, absolutely. Aww. And the upcoming...
I can't see, but I'm blushing, and I'm filled with love.
You should
and spilkus and nachas.
No, the Black Mariah, buy it. Find it, buy it. Can you download it off Amazon now?
Well, it's available on all formats,
For a long
Kindle.
time it wasn't.
Yeah, exactly. For a long time it wasn't.
Book.
It's really nice to have it be available at least digitally. It's sort of like your books have another life. It's lovely. And that book was, my firstborn, and everybody asked me, what's your favorite book? And, I always think back to The Black Mariah myself.
It's funny, that's how we met. I was assigned to interview.
That's right, that's how we met.
Yeah, this is your first book. And I love it. It's a great book, and it just used to break my heart that people could no longer grab it. But now you can, so do. Grab it. It's fantastic.
Thank you, Bruce.
And he's also...
I love you, too.
Let's turn this off for a second.
What's going on over here?
We'll be back.
I feel like I'm interrupting.
And he's also the author of his upcoming first young adult thriller, which is very cool, called Lucid. And he's a lifelong zombie fanatic who, believe it or not, once collaborated with the great George R. Romero. So he's a man who knows his way around a zombie. And we would like to thank you, Jay, for coming here to be with us.
My pleasure.
But
this is awesome.
I feel like
I love the recording equipment.
Oh,
it's like, what's that Ben Stiller movie where he plays the model?
Zoolander.
Zoolander, and their phones are like the size of postage stamps. This is kind of like that. It's like, this is our entire recording engineer and board.
It's a phone.
Zoolander, fantastic.
And a thank you to Apple for making this all possible.
Well, I'm going to start off by saying basically I think I should recuse myself because with a few exceptions, as you know, Jay, I have always stayed far away from zombie stuff.
Bruce, we have a 12-step program for that. And what is your, can I ask, have you had any bad experiences as a child
even the Walking
with
Dead,
zombie?
Much as I love you, Jay, though I have walked a few episodes, I stay away mostly because they just really creep me out.
Oh, well, that's like...
That's not the point. That's not in a good way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
So you don't like to be scared.
You're verging on actually complimenting
I don't find them scary. I find them depressing.
Okay. Well, then that's not good. That's not good. Because people want to be scared, but the scare has got to be thrilling and make you feel alive.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a cathartic moment that horror fans love.
Yeah.
That's why my kids, I have teenage boys, and they always say, the jump scare, Dad. How many jump scares? Are there jump scares? We want some jump scares. How many? Can you give us a jump scare right now? Boo! Oh, thank you, Dad. Thank you. They just love jump scares. I didn't even know what that was.
Well, they're trained to by movies now. You get 3 jump scares per movie.
Exactly.
And you're satisfied.
I was weaned on the jump scares of John Carpenter. John Carpenter, to me, invented the jump scare.
Right.
The modern jump scare.
Right.
And I met him, and I really admire that guy. He's one of the great examples of someone who takes his work very seriously, but he doesn't take himself seriously at all. He's just a super nice person, fun person to be around. But his deep focus work, on Halloween and movies like that, where deep focus and something
you on the shoulder and you look back and
it's still terrifying. Although I did show Halloween to my teenage boys who are jaded and play video games and Grand Theft Auto, and they were just completely bored and no offense, John Carpenter, I love you, but it didn't age well for them. And they said, show us an old movie that's scary. Don't you have any? All you have are horror films. And so you know which one I showed them that I knew would, enthrall them and scare the bejesus out of them? The original Exorcist.
Oh, God, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Somehow I knew that would...
That'll get under their skin.
Oh.
They were riveted. They said, this is like one of the scariest movies we've ever seen. There are no jump scares, by the way, in The Exorcist.
I mean, even that scene where
just
she comes
imaging.
down the stairs, all broken and spidery.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's a very modern image. They do that now. A lot of the Japanese horror movies.
That's true. That is very J-horror. Yeah, I never even thought of that. That's very true. It's very... Maybe that's one of the big influences on J-horror. Yeah, Friedkin, was a really great genre director at one point, and that sounds like, terrible, like praise from Caesar. But the guy who wrote that, I think, really deserves more credit than the average screenwriter, William Blatty. Because he wrote the book, he studied at Georgetown, he based it on a real case, and, it was that slow, incessant gathering horror that sticks with you more than jump scare, to me. Although I love James Wan movies and, The Conjuring, I thought was
Insidious
brilliant. Insidious,
pretty scary.
really scary and fun, and
Well, getting back to zombies, though, we just this may be the last thing you hear from me, but I just throw out the big question.
I hope not.
Which is, what the fuck? no, which is, what is the appeal? What is please, to someone who doesn't get it, what is the appeal of the flesh-eating zombie?
For me...
Jenny, your thoughts?
it's almost not the zombies that is my appeal. I love the idea of people banding together to fight this thing that's taken over their usual normal world. And, to me, I think they're just such a fun threat. And I love, this is why I liked, World War Z and all that, and the Zombie Survival Guide. Because for some reason, I have this sick desire to have this apocalypse where I have to survive. I've got to go hole myself up in some building or a prison or a farm or wherever and band together with all these strangers and fight off a common threat. I think that's so fun. So, for me, it's not even almost the zombies that are the great part. It's what they do to the living people that's really fun.
That's really well said. I mean, I've gotten into a lot of, since my work with The Walking Dead, I've, often, get into dissertations with fans and also people doing podcasts like this and interviewers who say, okay, Jay, last question. Fast-moving zombie or slow-moving zombie?
I was wondering, yes.
But that's a key to why I love zombies. I enjoy myself at movies with fast-moving zombies. I love Danny Boyle. I like I had a good time at 28 Days Later, and same with World War Z, the movie. It was exciting and interesting, but they're not zombies. They're not. No. It's like the zombie is, to me, is an important archetype, as important as the vampire or the man-made monster or the werewolf. A zombie, and a zombie is unique for several reasons. One, it's not a creation of prose. It's not a literary creation, as the others are.
Right.
That's vampire, true. Victorian age creation, may be a symbol of repressed sexuality. Man-made monster, modernism, the scariness of modernism. The zombie is a creation of film. It's
That's really interesting.
It's a visual creation.
Yeah.
And it has to move slowly because it becomes it rises in popularity when this is my theory. I mean who knows, but this is my own personal theory. It rises in popularity when we're having really crappy societal problems. This was invented by Romero, arguably, the modern zombie, which moves slowly. And there's even a line in the Romero film, the sheriff's being interviewed. Sheriff Stevens, are these monsters hard to, these ghouls, they call them ghouls. Are these ghouls hard to catch? Are they slippery? And the sheriff goes, well, no, not really. I mean, they're dead. They're all messed up.
They're all messed up. Classic, yeah.
But that is actually a key to the archetype, to the metaphor working, because that was when that film was made, that funny scene was presented. It was 1968. We were in Vietnam.
Right.
People were being assassinated. Beloved figures were getting shot off their porches. We were having riots in the street here in Chicago. So Romero invents this incessant, slow-moving thing that you could outrun. if you have pretty decent cardio, you know. And they're not that hard to kill, really. You could kill them with a shovel. You know, you don't need a high-powered rifle. The zombies in World War Z, you need like a semi-truck and a tank and, you know, bazookas. They were monsters. They weren't really... The zombie is a symbol for something that's incessant, and it's always out there. And however many you dispatch, there's more coming. And yeah, you can outrun them, but there's so many of them now, and they're multiplying.
Right.
It resonates for people during the Vietnam era. It resonates for people now. It's like your mortgage being underwater. Like you can pay it off this month maybe, or you can have time payments, or you can go to, you know, some guy on TV who's like, you know, debt, you know, settlement. Don't pay another debt. Come to our, you know. But it's going to keep coming.
Yeah.
Your credit rating's going to be ruined, you know. And it's all these, like, you know, distant problems like terrorism and, you know, wars in some other part of the globe that really don't affect us. Ebola, you know, don't worry about Ebola. Really? You sure? You know, the zombie represents that. The zombies out there, if you watch the show, The Walking Dead, they live in a place that's pretty inhabitable. It's a prison, but it's got a nice exercise yard. It's really not that bad.
No.
As a matter of fact, no offense to the Sun-Times, but it's almost better than this building we're in. That prison, you know.
Yes, our
nice cafeteria. It's got plenty of supplies. It's got bunks. It's you know.
Yeah.
But outside of that corridor, that fence, that cordons, the huge big, you know, cyclone fence, there's just more and more and more of these slow-moving, monstrous, you know, cannibalistic,
So it's a sense of something pressing in on you that you can't escape.
You can't escape it. It's always present somewhere out there, you know, and you can never relax, and you can never, just as people who, you know, are having financial difficulties nowadays, or, you know, societal problems that are mounting on our country now, you know. Maybe you could say that during any era, but really, I don't think so. I mean, the Clinton era, you know, the horror films were very different. I would you know, propose. I don't have any science on that, though. It might be interesting to go back and look at the horror movies during the Clinton, you know, years. You know, surplus Clinton disco years. You know, what was it, the 90s?
Yeah, so there would have been, Scream would have been one of
Scream.
the big ones. Yeah.
Great example.
Right.
Great example. When everything's cool, then you make fun of horror. You know, we all have it pretty good, so let's just, like, wink, wink. Let's make fun of horror. And then when we have a really shitty horror, it gets really intense and important to us again. Because The Walking Dead, let's face it, I mean, there's not a lot of comedy in it.
It's pretty dark.
Yeah.
You should probably go back, though. I don't think we talked about actually what your connection to The Walking Dead is.
Yeah, I'm fortunate enough to be kind of the house novelist for The Walking Dead. I work closely with the creator of the show and the comic book. It started as a comic book, as many know. And I work very closely with Robert Kirkman. And I work for his production company that produces the show as well, Circle of Confusion. And it's been the most fascinating, wonderful gig I've ever had. I mean, it was a great comic book at one time, period. Like, he won the Eisner Award, Comic of the Year, back in maybe 2005 or 2006. And it's been around for a long time, and it's still going strong. It's like in the 150-some issue. But this TV show came about, and, you know, that's when I first got offered, or you know, I first, you know, was told there's an opportunity to do this. I knew nothing about the TV show, but the more I read about it, like, Frank Darabont was going to be the showrunner, and Galen Hurd
was going to before the first season, or during the first season, around that time.
Before, yeah, before the TV show. I mean, I had no idea.
Right?
I didn't even know that Galen Hurd and Frank Darabont and AMC were involved. If you say to if this was back in the dark ages of 2009, you know, but if you said to somebody in 2009, there's going to be a zombie series on AMC.
Right.
That was like saying, Merchant Ivory's doing a hardcore porn film.
See, that'd be like Sharknado.
But I got to see that. I don't care. I mean, it's porn, it's Merchant Ivory. I need to see that, like whatever that would be. And that's what it was. It's like a zombie show on AMC? That's like incredible. I have to see, And then I found out it was Gail Ann Hurd.
Right.
So I really started vying for it. There were like 4 or 5 other authors. Because at that point, it's already getting big. Like people were seeing previews and seeing this show's going to be really huge. People were even thinking that then. And the comic was enormous. But it got bigger than anybody ever imagined. And
the numbers are crazy.
Exactly, the numbers are unbelievable. I can tell this is a scoop for this podcast. They just renewed it for a 6th season.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just yesterday, they renewed the show, or the last week actually, technically last week.
Right.
They just renewed it. Yeah, so it's renewed for a 6th season before the 5th season even starts.
Wow.
And it has set records like that. Like I think the first or second show had American Idol numbers
Oh yeah.
on
it's
basic
doing-
cable.
Right.
And
It's unheard of.
You would say this speaks to your idea that it's addressing some sort of deep
Yeah,
current
I mean,
unease.
It's fascinating to me on so many levels, and I'm it makes me happy to be alive. Ironically, the undead makes me happy to be alive. I mean, seriously, because. I just got married recently, and my new mother-in-law, bless her heart, says, "Jay, I'm so proud of you for doing these books, and I'm impressed, but I'm not really a horror person, and zombies kind of make me nauseous."
like Bruce kind of lady.
And I was of course I was like, no problem, I got plenty of books. Everything is fine,
Black
no
Mariah.
worries, yeah. But. Her daughter, my lovely wife, Jilly, who Lily Call is based on. This is based on my wife, Jilly.
Oh.
Really?
That's nice.
Totally everything about her. She dresses like that. I didn't even talk to the artist, and they pretty much replicated my wife, Jilly.
That's amazing. I
Jill
didn't know
Norton,
this.
great photographer, great artist in her own right. But Jill says to her mom, you should just try. You want to just open up, just crack open this first book, and just watch the first show. That's if you hate it or whatever, we'll totally. She is now like a rabid fan. She loves it. She's turned on all the ladies in her gated community onto it. Sherry
That's
Stern.
great.
This book's dedicated to her, to Sherry Stern. But I go off on that tangent by way of kind of answering, there is something to it that goes way beyond a horror property.
Yeah.
Horror is sort of like rock and roll, but rock and roll can be rich and deep. Once in a while, rock and roll can really, really touch chords and, be art, high art. Not often, but once in a while with just 3 chords, you can have like a Neil Young song where you go, that's art. There's something about this that's like, no, I'm not speaking about my books per se, but it's just Kirkman's invention, or I should say reinvention. Because he said he was inspired by Romero to do this comic book, which would be like a Romero movie that never ends. Because he said the one problem with Romero is at the end of his movies, there's always like a small group, a rainbow coalition, a black person, a lesbian, an intellectual, and they get in a helicopter and they fly off to some desert island.
Right.
And Kirkman always said, yeah, then what happens? Great, it's a desert island. They're surrounded by, the zombie apocalypse. Isn't that a great story to find out what... I think that's just a small part of The Walking Dead, but... he really hit something, hit a chord.
Yeah, and I think what's great about The Walking Dead is I always think that, post-apocalyptic or zombie or both movies get boring once, the National Guard shows up and all that. I mean, this really focuses on people who are still having to survive day to day and have no help.
Right.
And,
very good.
nothing.
Very true. like zombies are sort of the taupe colored shoes of horror. They go with other stuff. Like a vampire. A vampire is delineated. A vampire has a personality, and a vampire has a backstory and a look.
Yeah, they're a living person.
And right, I think hence you have now romantic vampire movies for young adults, which is nothing wrong with that. God bless them. But a zombie is monochromatic. A zombie just is a mirror. Like it just holds a mirror up to what kind of people we are. Will we become like Rick Grimes, who's like heroic and good and a saintly sort of badass? We all want to be the Rick Grimes. But some of us are going to go the way of the governor.
Right.
We're going to kill and rape and pillage in order to protect our people, our kids, or, So I mean I think that's why my mother-in-law gets hooked on it. Why mothers-in-law get hooked on it. It's about people. It's not about the zombies.
Well, it's interesting. I can see how it's a great artistic achievement that these books would touch on a chord, a cultural chord, and express that. What I don't understand though is why people enjoy it. I don't understand this expression of anxiety and unease and an overwhelming enemy that can never be defeated. Why that would be popular? Why would people want to watch that? Is it because they have the sense that people keep fighting and eventually they'll get through it? Or do you think that there's an atmosphere of hopelessness to the show or no?
Sure. I mean, Romero is not a big fan of the show, interestingly. And I love both Romero and my current boss, Kirkman, and they remind me of each other. They're both like big, burly country guys from the Midwest. Kirkman's from Richmond, Kentucky, and Romero's from, of course, Pittsburgh, But Romero goes, I'm not really a big fan of the soap opera aspect to it.
Oh.
But ironically, I think he hit on why people tune in. Why do people tune into soap operas?
Yeah, me.
Because, it's a legitimate question. I mean, the stereotype is just sort of the bonbon eating housewife, watches. That's not true. It's totally not true. Soap operas, daytime drama has gigantic audience of, college kids getting high. People love it. Because of this, and the same reason they love The Walking Dead to me. It is, maybe there is hopelessness, but it's constant solving problems and then being thwarted. When I started writing, one of my editors my first book was picked up by Time Warner, and it was published by Warner Books. And there was a great editor there named Rick Horgan. And Rick Horgan told me one time, Jay, storytelling, really, I know people have all these theories and everything, but to me, all it is about challenges being, taken head on and then being thwarted and having to rethink it and move and run and then try again and getting thwarted. And that's what storytelling is. And that's what a soap opera is, obviously. Soap opera is sort of like that on steroids. There's a big problem every 30 seconds, and organ music, and then a break.
So really, there wouldn't be an overwhelming atmosphere of hopelessness. It'd be more of an atmosphere of hope because you keep trying.
Well, like if you're watching it's like a, remember the cliffhanger thing? You obviously understand the mechanics of cliffhangers, why people love them.
Sure.
Obviously. Sure. It's the same theory. Like on The Walking Dead, they explore, I should say that's an interesting subject we could get into. I know we have limited time, but there's a writer's room in the TV show. There's a group of people who write the stories that drive the video games, which are hugely popular, which have their own sets of heroes and borrow characters. There's these books, which have their own sets of heroes, but I borrow characters and I lend characters. They all feed off each other. I've never seen anything like it.
No.
Even Star Wars was never like this. There weren't all these mediums feeding off each other even for Star Wars. But
is that Kirkman?
Yes.
He's a multimedia genius.
In a way, he's a multimedia. He is kind of a genius because he doesn't want you to be able to guess who's going to die and when. So sometimes characters live on in the books and they die in the show, vice versa.
Because
And
there are
they-
different time continuums.
Yeah, but there's a calculus to it. It's really complex. He likes to he'll call me. Robert Kirkman will call me. I just out of the clear blue, and he'll go, Jay, what season did the last book end at? Was it spring, or was it late summer? I don't remember, because he wants to keep some kind of continuity with everything, which is so interesting because things are also scrambled. So it's really, but where I was going with the cliffhanger is The Walking Dead I agree with Romero. It is sort of like a upscale soap opera, but they'll introduce something, and it'll be at the end of a show. They'll see a character. You'll see a character, and you realize, oh my God, they have a horrible sickness, like a virus or something terrible, and they're inside the prison with all the survivors, and they'll have a virus. You're hooked. I mean, you can't not watch. You're just sort of like, now what happens? They all get sick. It's really kind of fascinating how they just introduce little monkey wrenches into this, and it just keeps it so fascinating. A missing girl that drove the second season.
Yeah.
And it ended with, to me, it was so cinematic and brilliant the way it ended with the little girl Sophia.
Right. And
Many listeners know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and it was great that they actually went there. I think that even though that would be a hopelessness, all right, we'll say spoiler alert here. I'm going to...
Right. Go ahead.
Yeah,
I mean,
I've
become
Get
very
ready,
adept
people.
at this.
Spoiler alert from like 3 years ago. No. But, so the little girl dies, they're looking for her, and she's a zombie, and they kill her. But I think that you have to be real to that kind of world and say we're willing to kill children. I mean, that's what they put out there.
Right. Very good. Very true. I mean, that's another reason why he has this strange kind of trading of characters, but genetically modifying them in each medium, so you don't know if they're going to die or not. You're not sure.
I'm curious, though, for the people who have read the comics and are reading your books, I mean, how much did you have to stay... So you didn't have to stay true to what had come before, necessarily.
Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Okay.
It depended upon, like, some of the books, and specifically, most specifically, the last two books of the Governor arc, the Governor series, The Fall of the Governor Part 1 and Fall of Governor Part 2. Robert wanted to create in prose form what happens in the comic book from a different point of view.
Okay.
It was a fascinating experiment for me because I had this visual medium, and I was sort of doing a novelization, but not really, because what I was doing is then imagining what was happening at that time with another group of characters, and then imagining during a big battle what it was like to be on the other side and to see some of these characters in the distance. And, in the comic book, just very briefly, a quick anecdote. In the comic book, there's this character, Lily. No last name. Nobody ever had seen her right up until the moment in the comic book. Spoiler alert. She just appears out of nowhere, and the governor's rallying his people from his town of Woodbury that he kind of runs. And he's having them attack the prison with Rick Grimes and all of his people. And this Lily just shows up, or she's just out there with a high-powered rifle. She's one of the governor's men, or people, and she fires, and she kills Lori Grimes and Lori's baby.
Wow.
And it's in the comic book world, there's a thing called a splash page, which is an entire page, usually with no dialogue. It's just a big image, and you turn the page of the comic book, and you're like, huh? And it's Lori Grimes and her baby getting blown away. Blood
everywhere,
gore,
right.
brain matter. And that's the appeal of this for many people. You don't know who to trust. You don't know what's going to happen. And then this woman, Lily, insinuates herself into the A story because the governor's like, all right, you other men move up there. And what's your problem? The governor says in one frame. You're like, who's he talking to? And then the next frame shows Lily, and she's got her head down, and there's tears dripping off her face. She's like, look what you made me do. I just killed a woman and her baby. And she, takes her gun and points it at in fact, drives him to the ground with her gun in his mouth, the governor's mouth. And he's in the comic book. It occurs over the space of maybe 8 frames. He gets away from her. He's like, he kicks her in the face, and then he runs to another, part of the prison, and she blows him away. She shoots him in the back of the head and kills him, vaporizes his skull. You're like, who is this person?
Right.
And even at one point in the comic book, there's a single frame where the other guys, the governor's guys, are standing around when she's got the muzzle in the governor's mouth, and they're like, Lily, you don't have to do this. You're like, okay, Lily, never heard of her. I think that's the appeal of the comic. People have no idea who's going to come,
Because those rules, they wouldn't, the TV show, of course, went in a totally different direction because those rules would not work on a TV show. I mean, maybe they would because people would be so shocked.
Well, yeah,
but I think
you're right.
people wouldn't be used to that, and they'd
Totally
say,
right.
wait, we don't even know this woman, and she's suddenly, I think they would have expected the payoff for a long-term character to have killed the governor, which is, of course, what happens. But
very true.
yeah.
Yeah, maybe
it's
the new
interesting.
sort of meta TV show. These,
Right.
Maybe it's more acceptable. Who knows? But that's kind of an interesting thing to study onto itself. Is like what is the norms and mores of new television, especially since television, with apologies to film, which I'm a film baby and I went to film school and I love film and I always will. TV is where the real
richer
interesting
medium,
stuff's
Yes.
being done. Film is not. Film has lost its cachet as the great art form.
Right.
It's now television. Just watch True Detective.
It's certainly not speaking.
Watch
to
Breaking
young
Bad,
people the way
you
they
know.
did once, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There's nothing in film that good.
My daughter and all of her friends are obsessed about television. That's what they talk
I'm a
about.
TV person.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
look at the generation. Everything they're watching movies on that.
Right.
And
Yeah, you
television
don't-
television is a different medium. It's dialogue and storytelling through faces and talking to each other, almost like a play, versus film, which is more, vistas and visuals and stuff.
Well, in a way, they're reaping their just desserts too, because they boiled down films into these just formulaic blather. That doesn't really
Exactly.
doesn't speak to anyone
Right.
anymore. It's
Yes.
distraction. Most movies are not just distractions.
Right.
And
Yeah.
take
Well
them or
said.
leave them.
Yeah. Yeah.
8
I
out of
agree with
10.
you.
So yeah.
You've heard of Sturgeon's Law? I always think of Sturgeon's Law. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Theodore Sturgeon was a famous science fiction writer in the 60s and 70s, great writer. And he used to say, only 10% of anything is good. Whether it's movies or like chocolate pudding or restaurants or, rock bands or,
Sure.
Makes sense.
shoes. Only 10% is really worth like looking at and consuming. The rest of it is mediocre to bad. That's sort of Sturgeon's bell-shaped, bell curve. And it's kind of true. But anyway, we digress.
Yeah, sweet, but I just wanted to toss in. I thought I remembered
Sure.
you saying once that you were unhappy with the way that the TV show went with the governor compared to Jay's novels.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I wanted to ask you is about the comparison between
Right.
the way the governor was portrayed in the comics and your books versus on the TV show. I think my issue was, and The Walking Dead as a TV show, of course, is not going to be as much into characters as Breaking Bad or something like that, because to some degree some of them are zombie fodder. So,
Right.
they're not going to have a lot of time to spend.
Ensign number 2.
Yes. It's like, it's not all about them, But I thought it was interesting, they introduced the governor, and he was just thrown in there already at his peak.
You're talking about the TV show?
The TV show.
Yeah.
Later, they did a flashback, which was somewhat similar to the storyline that you had in your books, in the comics about his rise. A little, some major details changed, but, I felt it would have been a stronger storyline on the TV show if they had given us some of his backstory earlier.
Good point. Yeah, I mean, I know what you're talking about. And are you familiar with the comic? Have you ever seen?
I'm not super familiar with the comics. I've seen a few, but I'm not, unfortunately.
I've heard
versed on them.
many fans, or I don't know if many is the correct word, but quite a few have said, I was thinking they were going to cast Danny Trejo.
Yeah, right.
That's who the comic book governor was.
Is that what he looks like?
That's what he looks like. He's
Okay.
big, dangerous looking with a faux mustache, and just you wouldn't get near him.
Sounds like it was written for Danny Trejo.
It was written for Danny Trejo. There's a scene where he goes, "Let me take you on a tour of Woodbury."
Oh God.
With a little twinkle in his eye. And I'm like, who's going to go on a tour
Yeah.
with this guy?
No.
Now we're going to walk down this narrow, dark alley. I'll show you something else. No. I mean, he was arch. He was like an arch villain. But our book, the book that I started with Kirkman, working with Kirkman on Rise of the Governor, that was, I could tell it was like a transition into the David Morrissey Governor. Because there's a twist, and again, spoiler.
Yes.
I won't say what the twist is, but there's a twist at the end of the first book, Rise of the Governor, where you learn who he really is, and then it
Right.
sort of changes everything. It's
Yep.
like, wow, kind of interesting.
Yeah, I thought that when I read the book, I won't give it away, but it sets up two possibilities, and you would think it goes one way because that's the way it usually goes, and of course it's not the way it is.
Right.
But I think that was my issue with the governor on The Walking Dead. We only know him, and you can tell when you meet this guy. I think the actor was really good, and you could tell there's something wrong with him.
Right, you
away.
can tell he's
off.
Right.
Right. So
He's got issues.
Yeah, and I think it would have been more interesting for his character to see him before he was off, and to realize, wait, this guy was not always, this
I can see, but even David Morrissey was trying to do what you recommend.
Right.
Not that it's sort of actors against the writers' room. I mean, they work together hand in hand, obviously, and Kirkman controls everything. I mean, over the years, people have gone, "Did you hear the showrunner left Walking Dead? They must be in trouble." And I go, "No, you don't understand. It's like Kirkman controls everything. That's probably why he's losing showrunners, you know." When Frank Darabont left, it was all this sort of vague. It was like when somebody goes into rehab in Hollywood, they're spending more time with their family. With Frank Darabont leaving, it was like obvious, he's a big dog. He's
I was going to say, was it two alpha
two
dogs?
two alpha dogs, and obviously, Darabont is brilliant and started the series, and he cast all these main, these roles, and he deserves much credit, and he still gets a credit as, one of the co-creators. But then he realized it the buck stops with Kirkman. Kirkman, and that's my theory. I don't even know that for a fact. But
speaking of that, since there's this weird sort of overlap between the books and the comic books and the TV show and the video games, what is his role in determining where the stories go in these various mediums? Does he just lay out outlines? I think you told me some time ago when you started writing these books that in the beginning he would send you outlines.
Right.
And
he was very specific in the beginning when I started working on these books. And he got less and less. I think he trusted me. Like when I was working on the first book, I would have to send him 50-page chunks.
Okay.
Because that's how else is he going to know what I'm doing and whether I'm, doing a good job? And, I remember one time I told him, "God, I've heard all these stories about you being a complete dick."
Risky
And I felt like close enough to him, and I had rapport with him that I could say that, and I knew him by that point, and I knew he would get a kick out of it. And I said, "But I don't find that's true at all. I mean, you're sort of like a pussycat. You're like easy to work with." And he said, "Well, if I didn't like what you were doing, I'd be the biggest dick you've ever worked with." And I'm like, okay, message received, duly noted. But he would be very specific. But as they moved on, he got more and more sort of just sketching it out. But as I said, the last two books in the Governor series, he simply, said, "You're sort of following the fall of the Governor from the comic book from Lily's perspective, And that's why I went off on that tangent telling you about Lily.
Right.
She didn't have a last name in the comic book, never did. I gave her I gave the Governor his last name, Blake. I spent a lot of time, Lily Call, Caul. I spent a lot of time thinking about last names. last names, are more important than many people think. They need to resonate subconsciously.
Yeah.
Caul, Caul, is like a folk phrase for the embryonic membrane, around the baby. And that Lily is sort of born and evolves like that, and that's what Blake, it was, I wanted a name that sounded like it could cut you if you got too close to it, and also it had the association of Blake, the poet, the visionary artist, the kind of crazy visionary, and there probably was some Thomas Harris influence in that, coming up with Blake too. That's how much you think about names.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And so they took Blake for the show. I've had them take, half a dozen, maybe more names for the show. Bob Stuckey, there's a character named Bob Stuckey. He was, alcoholic. That's from the book. I had to come up with a name for Bob.
Oh, wow.
And they take the names from the books, and then I'm really proud of that. The show is, it's like a comic book is primary colors, but television and film, it's more specific. You really are going to make a judgment the minute you see a face like David Morrissey. The minute he comes on screen, you're going to make all these subconscious judgments about him. So it's really complex casting and performance and
Trejo versus.
Yeah, I mean, it says an enormous amount that they didn't use Danny Trejo or somebody.
I
Like
think
that.
it was better for TV that they went the direction they went. Because I don't think you would have taken him seriously if he looked like Danny Trejo on a
plus,
TV show.
I love Danny Trejo, by the way.
Yeah,
I think Danny Trejo is one of
yeah.
our treasures. He's a great actor.
Terrific.
He's been in serious films. I thought he's been brilliant. He was in Heat.
He's always
with De Niro, and he's always great. But Andrea, for instance, had to fall in love with the governor.
Right. Yeah.
That would be a stretch. No offense to Danny Trejo. I'm sure he's like my wife Julie says, I'm sure he's a lovely person.
But yeah, that would have been an odd pairing, those two.
Yeah,
They'd
right.
be like, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I mean, it all like bounces off each other, and the writer's room and the casting and everything. It's all interconnected. Same with the books, though. That's, the latest geek thing I've gotten into with people is like, can you name another franchise that's had this kind of, medium hybridization or whatever the phrase is for it? Proliferation across all these mediums. Even the video game has a huge following unto itself and a hero unto itself. Clementine in the video game is a really well thought out character.
Isn't that interesting?
A young girl, like a teenage girl, really well thought out.
That's really brilliant.
It is
you would
brilliant.
Go to the effort
It's-
of creating different arcs with different media.
And sometimes,
So impressive.
sometimes they try that and it doesn't work because you can tell they're really just trying to, profit and expand off this universe without putting any thought into it. But that's not, this really does not seem that way. It doesn't come across that way. It comes, it's very thought out and.
Right. I mean, back to the original idea of the podcast itself we're doing right now. I'm just curious, do you not swallow, do you not accept the whole idea of catharsis? Like the reason that people go and see something terrible, something really horrific, hard to watch, but people are attracted to it. It's a paradox. And the Greeks explained it through catharsis.
I understand.
Do you not buy
I understand
that?
catharsis if it's an exuberant. If it's, I understand catharsis if it's a football game or something like that. Where it's hard for me to understand catharsis through
Negative
Or,
things.
yeah, and just briefly, the thing that gets me about zombies. I mean, I understand it's a powerful image and they're scary. I get it. But there's just something enormously depressing to me about the idea. It's the soullessness. It's the idea of a human being up and walking around that's inanimate. I mean, inanimate in the sense that he's soulless. That whatever makes a human being, he's lost his humanity. And the idea of and this goes back to the thing you were saying that you didn't really buy into, the idea that George Romero's Dawn of the Dead, set in the shopping mall, was a shot at consumerism.
Yeah, I question.
But I think it kind of was. I think he might have intended it that way. It was that idea of people walking around soullessly and yet still being consumers.
thing with the Dawn of the Dead, which you're referring to, the consumerism symbolism. Dawn of the Dead was made in the 70s and was shot in the shopping mall primarily, mostly. And there's zombies wandering around a shopping mall.
Yes.
You can tell whether, I'm not even sure I disagree with you. I mean, you don't buy the fact that it's,
Well, I think
consumer.
it's not that I don't buy it. I think though sometimes people add on
Yeah.
the layers.
I think this is so true because, the first film he made, I kind of am on the fence about. You may be right. What happens is, in fact, Richard Price, the novelist, he used to say, the problem with getting any acclaim and success is you start out as a writer, and then your first book maybe hits it big and puts you in the upper echelon, and then you're no longer a writer, you're an author. And it happens to filmmakers. The first film they make, the Coen brothers make Blood Simple, and they make it on a shoestring with cameras mounted on boards, and it's brilliant. And then they become the Coen brothers.
Right.
And then everything changes, and sometimes it goes downhill. And George made this first movie, and people made over it after years. Roger Ebert did a reassessment of it.
Right.
Yeah.
He first thought it was like horror porn, and then he goes, you know what, maybe this is like one of the most brilliant, and he really reassessed it. And that happened, and finally George starts going, hey, there is something to this movie. And he starts getting asked, yeah, the casting of the black man. Mm-hmm. So amazing. At the end, it's the black man, and it has all this resonance. And George is like, yeah, you're right about that. I know George, and he's like, I wish I could claim genius for that. But that guy was the best actor.
Yes.
Probably the cheapest for them. He was in their budget. He was the best actor, and he was fantastic.
Yeah.
And they had to, they used a black guy. It was actually maybe the most innocent, really healthy reason to use a black guy.
Yeah.
Then he makes Dawn of the Dead, and he does have characters saying things like, there's two characters on a balcony overlooking the zombies, shambling around the mall, and one character says, "Why do they come here?" And the other character goes, "It's a place they used to come to that made them feel comfortable. They were happy here." Now, I think that's George,
Oh yeah.
the
Absolutely.
author. He started out as a writer. Now that's George, the author, going, this stuff has more meaning than people give it credit for. So, but I loved Dawn of the Dead for that reason. He had ambition then. He wanted to make epics that, were more than just jump scares, So it's kind of a complex issue, whether it's,
Yeah, and I absolutely think that was intentional, and I think they are way deeper. But I think after a certain point, people look a little too hard sometimes then and try to read into things. Like I used to in college when I took a poetry class, I used to always want to go back in time and make the poet tell us what each line means, so that you can go back and be like, "What are you talking about?" But everybody brings something to the table.
It's
too.
like that Woody Allen film. I happen to know Marshall McLuhan.
No,
In fact, I have him right here.
You know nothing about my
You
work.
know nothing of my work.
Yeah.
If only life were like this.
But I think
Only library.
I think zombies are deeper. And, Shaun of the Dead had a great gag where, he goes into the little convenience store, slips on a pool of blood. There's zombies all around. He doesn't notice, because he's the slacker dude. He's totally cut off from life and just goes about his day. And, I think it was especially a good thing with the rise of cell phones and people walking around staring at their cell phones,
Yeah, I'm just as we're talking about it, I'm thinking of all these random sort of errant thoughts I've had over the course of my life because I've worked on zombie material a lot, and now, of course, in the last 5 years, it's been my day job, concentrated, constantly thinking about zombies. But very few of us have met vampires. A vampire is just basically a conceit. Mm-hmm. It's really cool. It's a unicorn. It's like, cool, a horse with a horn, All right, cool, I'll go with it. Zombies, there's something more human and visceral. We're all going to become dead.
Yeah.
And we've all looked down into the casket and seen Aunt Edna. and she doesn't look good. You know, she looks dead. She looks all messed up, you know, frankly, if we're honest with each other. So it's like Kubrick used to say, I think Nicholson said this in a documentary. I don't know where I first heard this, but Nicholson was like, you know, it seems a little depressing that, you know, this haunted hotel, it just wants to kill people and draw it into its vortex of pain and misery and depressing, and in the end it's all dark. And Kubrick said, not really. And Nicholson's like, what do you mean? Kubrick says, it's all optimistic, all supernatural, all stories that tell something after death. You go on somehow. Even as a, you know, shambling cannibalistic zombie, there's something optimistic about it. If you look at it just semiotically, you know, you put your grad student hat on and look at it, what is it really saying? Death is not the end.
Yeah.
You know, because that is the existential horror of life, is that this is it. You know, and I know a lot of atheists are the happiest people because they go, this is all we've got. Enjoy it, man. Have that second piece of cheesecake. Because it's all you got.
Right.
You're not going to some shining city with 30 virgins or whatever.
So I have to
You know what I mean?
disagree, though, because I think that it's not in any way an optimistic thing to have someone reanimated
Yeah.
dead. I
That's-
think it's, in a way, it's like a mockery of life.
That's superficial, though. Think of it in the terms of dream logic. You're going superficial. You're saying, yeah, it's like ugly, and they hurt you. They bite, you know. Yes, true. But there's a deeper logic to dreams, which usually people can't figure out. Like, why when I was crossing that bridge, I was so frightened and scared to death, and then I wake up and I feel like, almost like, whew, that was a great dream. Or something like that, you know. I mean, I'm really oversimplifying. Most people have dreams they can't figure out. They just seem stupid or crazy, you know. But the film and you know, motion pictures, visual mediums work on that realm as well as the superficial. Yes, it's scary, and it's kind of depressing that your Aunt Edna is not only ugly, but she will pop out of that casket and try to eat you.
That's the strange thing too about this, and zombie lore kind of varies. For The Walking Dead, it isn't just, you don't just become a zombie if a zombie bites you. You die. Natural causes and you become a zombie.
Yes, very good, thank you. Because that sort of fortifies what I'm saying, because in The Walking Dead, I'm not even sure this is a spoiler anymore. Most people that follow the TV show or, you know of The Walking Dead, they know it fairly well.
Yeah.
They know we're all infected. Mm-hmm. Once you die, you will become a walker, unless somebody, you know, stoves in your head. So this is where we're all going. You know what I mean? It's like there's no cure for life and death. This is where it's going. Granted, I agree with you, Bruce, that, you know, ostensibly, once you die, you go back to the earth, you know, and it could be looked at as beautiful. You go back to the dust, you know. And in this universe, it gets really, really inconvenient once you die. You start having to eat constantly with no sustenance. You know, so it is like hell on earth. Romero used to say, when there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth. It sounds good, but to me it never really worked, metaphorically. It's like, so you're saying just all these people are, you know, they're evil? They belong in hell? No way, they're people. Cheerleaders and your dentist. No, that's not, to me, that's not the metaphor. The metaphor is, you know, we're all heading this way, and so, you know, we're turning death into a mythology with zombies.
So it's just sort of underscoring mortality. Is that what you're saying? It's like sort of making mortality jump up and down and say, here I am, and I'm coming for you.
Yeah.
Slowly.
Yeah, I
inexorably.
think. Yeah. They Do
you think that's it? Do you think the zombie thing there's a metaphor for mortality?
Yeah, absolutely. You look at your friend, and, you know, he or you're playing canasta, you're playing gin rummy with them, and then the next thing, they're a monster. And you go, it's so fleeting. I could go tomorrow. You know, I happen to know things. I you know, it's fun for me, but also it's kind of weird and creepy. Is I know who's going to die. I know some of the deaths that are coming, and you know, everybody, you know, nobody, you know, most people don't want to know. You know, they don't want me to spoil.
Right.
You know, but some people are dying to know.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, it's fleeting. You know, life is fleeting. I mean, Robert jokes when he's asked, why do you think it's so popular? You know, what you've created. It's like amazing. Robert goes, you know, to me, it's just people love to tune in and see other people with worse problems than their own.
Okay. Buy that.
I also think if you're looking for a fun aspect to it, I think it's fun in this super popularized world that we live in, the idea of kind of having free reign over everything. Like, you get to loot.
Right,
Like,
right,
that's acceptable.
right.
Like, I don't know, the hunter-gatherer aspect of
Yeah.
it's kind of fun. Like,
This is, I think you're onto something. It removes like the you know, the what's the word for it? You know, the precious kind of fake societal veneer of civilized behavior, and it goes into the primitive lizard brain of all of us. You know, because really, if you think about it, we've only been like this with all these societies and governments and cities and everything for a short time. We've been around for hundreds of thousands of years. And, you know, Neanderthal man was closer to Rick Grimes than the governor.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, they had to protect their family in the cave, and it's how far would they go? Well, they would go as far as they needed to protect their family. Because it was an imperative just to survive. And that's, again, you're asking a really good question, but, you know, first of all, 5 million people can't be wrong.
Right.
It's like Elvis.
And
But-
McDonald's.
But you can analyze why those 5 million people
Sure.
tune in.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's
It's
more
way
like
more than
10
that.
million.
Oh,
Or I don't know what
I
it
think
is.
it's up to like 18 million.
Yeah, 18.
Yeah,
So,
it's
exactly.
nuts.
But, you know, they are going back to something that's maybe encoded genetically in us.
I think it's the mortality piece. And I never thought about it so clearly before. I think that's what it is.
Cool. I'm glad we solved that today in this podcast for our listeners.
Still depresses
Right.
the daylights
Yeah.
out of you.
It's a public service.
It is depressing.
It's entertaining.
Yeah.
Jenny, you're onto something here.
Yeah,
I think you should take this national.
great.
I think it is the mortality piece because it's coming for you. It's slow. It's inexorable, as you said.
Yes.
And yet, you resist. The human
Right.
experience.
Yes.
Resist, go on. Keep on living.
Right.
Even though you know in the end.
Very much was made
gonna
at one
get
point in the television show of a guy from the CDC leaning over and whispering. And you didn't hear what he said, but Rick Grimes is like, he told him the secret of the plague. And that was one of the great cliffhangers. But the secret was, we all have it. We all have it. Think about just, again, go deeper into subtext.
Yeah.
What is it we all have?
That's what it is.
Right.
I got
We're
it.
all going to die at
Yeah.
one point.
I get it.
And most
Yep.
people will say, for a healthy child development, teach them that death is part of life. It's not something to be feared. You know, you don't want to. Mom and dad are going to be around for a long time, but death is not. You know, I've seen horror films. Some taglines are something like death is not the worst thing that can happen to you.
Right.
Last house on the left.
Right, right,
Boing.
right, exactly.
Whatever. But it's true. Death is. Death is
In
not.
that case, it means it's having your penis bitten off.
Yeah.
And Bruce, you enjoy that,
Yes.
and yet a few little zombies
from that, like,
lumbering
plague.
around.
I just happen to know. What's
Okay,
in
I was
that
gonna
movie.
say
I
now
would not
that is a
voluntarily-
depressing movie.
Yeah, I clearly never mind. I have to again recuse
Isn't that
myself 'cause I
based
stay away
on,
from that stuff.
The Virgin
Yes.
Spring, that Bergman.
Supposedly,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the one villain in there, I was reading that he couldn't leave his house after that movie came out. He would be on the subway and people just be accosting him.
Oh,
on
really?
the subway, yeah.
Oh my God, that's fabulous.
Last house on the left.
Yeah, because he was.
Wow.
It was a shot kind of realistic. So he'd go out in public.
Was
and-
that Wes Craven?
Yes.
Is that the guy who did
Yeah,
that?
I'm pretty sure.
Because didn't he
Yep.
then go on to make? I don't know what the connection is to this, but it seems like it's germane to everything we've been talking about. He went on to make Scream.
Right.
So the guy who was making this,
Yeah, which is so dark and icky. Those are the kind of movies that get under my skin.
yeah, right, like
especially as a woman, like you do have to think about you could be attacked.
It's
You know,
because it's
Texas Chainsaw and
Oh,
movies like that. Yeah, that I don't get.
It's the
Or
hopelessness.
porn.
It's the nihilist.
I don't get the Saw kind of, or Saw. I mean, I actually maybe I do get it because I
So, yeah,
I mean I don't know if
Hostel maybe.
yeah, Hostel, a good example of the torture porn, horror porn. But I have to admit, some of the Japanese films, like Audition, I was riveted. I could not
That's
get it
pretty
out.
nasty.
It's really nasty, but it's there's some catharsis. There's something about there's just something to it that you go through it and you go, okay, that was the most disturbing thing I've seen in a long time. But I made it through.
Yeah.
And then you get a little T-shirt. I made it through Audition, and you feel good about yourself. I think there's something that's going on for some people. They see Glenn, who's a beloved character in The Walking Dead.
Glenn. I know I love Glenn.
Yeah, people love Glenn. Glenn is like he's not like Daryl Dixon, who's like the rock star. He's like
He's the one you want to be like your boyfriend.
right.
Glenn, you want your best friend.
Right,
No,
exactly.
maybe your boyfriend and your Mister. Yeah.
Cool. I've never heard anybody put it that way.
Your
That's very
mister.
cool.
Well, instead of mistress.
No, I hadn't heard that. I like it. I like that.
But people sit there in their living rooms and they're not used to seeing something as gory as Glenn and Rick and I can't remember who else it was. Maybe Andrea. Or there's like 2 or 3 of them covering themselves in entrails, human organs and entrails, in order to camouflage themselves to move through a swarm of zombies. By the way, we never use the word zombie.
Yeah, that's
I don't know
the
if
walkers.
you noticed that.
Yeah,
I've done it a couple of times and I've been spanked for it.
Oh, it's hard though.
Yeah, when
they
I
don't-
first started working on it, I was just like, hey, I'm an artist. I'm going to start doing stuff. And I got spanked a couple times. I said, why not a scene told through the point of view of a zombie? And Kirkman's like, no, we don't do that.
So what's the term of art?
Now I feel like I'm completely absorbed the mythology. I know exactly what's verboten and what, and I love it. I love the restrictions.
They're walkers.
They're called walkers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although a few of the groups.
Biters.
Yeah, there's a few others.
There's a few biters, walkers, and then some. In the comic books, sometimes they would call them shit bags and scum, sucking, and they don't even like that. Like I came up with these, pus bags, and yeah, we got a few pus bags out here. Over, you can take care of them. Oh yeah, we're gonna take care of these pus bags. And I was told, by DA, who's like one of my good friends and associates he produces the show.
Okay.
He goes, they kind of don't. They meaning the writers' room and Robert. They don't like all these sort of hillbilly, angry, kind of bigoted terms for the walkers. I'm like, wow, that's kind of fascinating.
Is that because
Yeah.
the walkers are us?
Maybe that
what's
feeds
going on?
that. I never thought of that, but because this podcast is the most incredible meeting of minds that I've ever heard.
Figured it out.
That's a really good point. It could be, we don't like to, diminish
Yeah.
a walker, But but still though they're almost like fish, like on the show, like Carl, let me teach you how to put a knife through this one's head. Right? You do it hard like that. You try, Carl, and it's like, it's not exactly dignified.
No.
So I don't know. It's like fascinating.
Although they
There's-
do seem to punish the characters who go too far into treating them inhumanely. So,
Yeah, that started with Romero too. I mean,
Yeah.
in Dawn of the Dead, I think it was Savini, the makeup wizard. Toward the end of the film, he played like a biker gang leader,
lovable biker.
and he would he'd have fun chopping off the heads and geeking them and everything, and that was portrayed by Romero as kind of like comic, tragic, grand guignol grotesquerie. It was not right. There was something about it that was wrong.
And then in Day of the Dead, they're essentially being tortured, and there's definitely the implication
Yeah.
that that's wrong.
Right,
We're
exactly.
supposed to be sympathetic to them now.
The undead, Romero calls them zombies, but the undead in Day of the Dead, it was always evolving. Like they were trying to teach one of them how to communicate, and stuff. And you realize then after a while, the zombies are not the most unsympathetic characters in these mythologies.
Yeah, no.
It's, God knows it's true in The Walking Dead.
Oh, absolutely.
The zombies are just sort of like, they're like just people on the L. They're really, I mean, it's not their fault.
Right. Yeah, they have no malice, they're just, they
Exactly.
just gotta eat.
Yeah, there's that great scene
Yeah.
in season 1 with, I can't remember what the character now, I'm having a brain mess up. But she decides to commit suicide by going out and embracing her sister who's become a zombie. And it wasn't played for horror. It wasn't, I don't know if you remember the film Silence of the Lambs, the original film Silence of the Lambs with Jodie Foster and everything.
Right.
That wasn't played for horror either.
No.
And that was why it was so great. I think it spawned a new subgenre because it was sad and it was dark and it was shades of gray. It wasn't just evil versus good, And I think The Walking Dead plays on that a little bit. You hear pop music being used in some of the shows now to kind of make it. They're like little indie films. They're more complex than they ever were.
Yeah. Well, I think, going back to the mortality, that's definitely, the question I think with zombie things is always, is it better to be alive or, and is it
Right.
better to live or is it better to become one of them?
Right.
And that's probably sort of like if you have like a terminal disease,
Right.
Do you ride it out to the end knowing what you're heading toward? Or do you say, I'm going to do a Kevorkian here and
Right.
just check out? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's, we haven't really, if we all put our heads together to write a term paper for our graduate thesis, I think we could figure it out. But
Yeah.
we're hinting at, and we're sort of walking around an interesting theory that, there's 3 different polarities, 3 things you could do. You could be human and struggle and experience the misery of living in the plague, the zombie apocalypse. Or you could be a zombie. Neither one of those are actually really the best option. The best option is to be that third option, which is resting in peace.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Having your brains blown out and then being put down and mourned. And that's why in the show you see, and in these books, there's a tremendous amount of eulogies. Like if somebody dies or gets eaten or they get bit or whatever, they die, they have now this whole protocol where they're like, you want to do it? Yes, I believe I should do it. And that's the person who shoots them in the head. And then that person often is the one who gives the eulogy at the commemoration of that person. So it's kind of fascinating. It's a lot richer and there's a lot more specific protocol in this mythology than people even really realize. I mean, I've seen Robert, just sort of toss it off. It's like, oh shucks, he's a guy from Kentucky. It's just, just a little zombie story. But no, it's so well thought out. And there's so many minds on it, and they take it so seriously. To me, that's a great artist who takes their work very seriously, but they don't take themselves seriously.